We're looking at these tensions, how long they go, how escalated they get. I think that that is generally one of the key factors in what's shaping the market is really how this translates to oil prices specifically. Good afternoon. We have a slower data week here this week, but a lot to cover with the Iran story developing. I'm Brandon Steele, financial advisor with Mainsail Financial Group here in Bellevue, and our goal is to leave you feeling more empowered each week after these updates, hopefully weeding out some of the noise of the markets and really bringing to you some of the stories moving the trends that are shaping markets here week to week. So again, this week is a little bit slower on the data front. The main thing maybe to highlight was home sales, which came out late last week. Home sales were quite a bit below expectations. This likely is tied to interest rates being higher, essentially. This, one data point, as always, is not necessarily anything to write home about, but it is important to watch because we did start to see housing market, doing a little bit better. And then as interest rates have shifted again here with the Fed suggesting that rates may be fewer and further between, we have seen the 10-year yield on treasuries kind of pick up quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. But the big story, of course, is the volatility that we're seeing in the markets with the Iran tensions and a lot of mixed messages. So this week, we have seen a lot of ups and downs. Going back all the way to late last week, we've heard this story of this being over, and then Iran saying it's not over, Trump saying it's over, Iran saying it's not over, and we just keep going back and forth here. So what this has caused is a lot of volatility on both ends. We've seen a lot of strong days, we've seen a lot of down days, and it seems to really be whipsawing as a result of this. And this will tie into our question of the week, which is really around oil prices and why this matters. But before I really get into the details there, I think a lot of the concern here is really around how this all translates to what oil prices might do and how that affects the global economy. So basically, as we're looking at these tensions, how long they go, how escalated they get, I think that that is generally one of the key factors in what's shaping the market is really how this translates to oil prices specifically. So that's where I really want to spend some time today, is to talk about how we're looking at that and what to watch ahead. Before we get into this question of the week, really around oil prices, be sure to tune in next Thursday. We have consumer sentiment and retail sales, and of course, we'll continue to share the developments around the main story here as time goes on. But the main thing I wanted to cover again today is really how the tensions in Iran are really affecting oil prices and why we're watching that so closely as we look ahead. So basically, what's going on is as a result of these tensions, Iran has tried to, and for the most part, we've seen almost successfully close the Strait of Hormuz. And so that has created a lot of challenges in relation to oil prices. A huge amount of the oil supply goes through that Strait of Hormuz. And as a result of that, we're seeing oil prices spike quite a bit. Now, what I will share is that the US doesn't get a whole lot of oil from that strait. However, the other countries do, and obviously supply demand globally starts to affect things. But especially for countries that are more directly impacted by the Strait of Hormuz oil supply, that is where things are starting to become a challenge. And I've heard some stories, I don't have any data to support it necessarily, but about how much of an impact that's already having in some of those countries in that area, and how the supply of oil has really dried up. So that's something to watch really carefully. What we're keeping an eye on is really how oil prices affect all of this. With oil prices above $100 a barrel for a significant period of time, that's where we could start to see some impacts more broadly, more globally to the market, and not just the oil market, but the stock market as a whole. Because if we see those elevated oil prices for a sustained period of time, of course, what that means to us as consumers is that more of our money is going towards energy, and therefore, a little bit less in our pockets for the other things that we might enjoy doing. So that is really something to watch carefully. I think that the administration will watch that very carefully as well. So I don't know if that necessarily means policy will change as a result of it, but I know that they're aware of it, and could mean that, if this becomes a bigger issue, that could start to shape where policy goes from there, because those higher oil prices absolutely have an impact. And I think they know that very well, regardless of what they may say. So oil price is a big consider to watch here, or a big item to watch here as we look towards how this all translates to the markets ahead. And I won't pretend to know how long this goes. I think anybody telling you how long it goes probably is making a guess at best. But what I will share is that the longer that this does drag on and the longer oil prices are higher, the more challenges start to present themselves. So we're watching this really carefully. I think that, you know, if this does resolve quickly, it may not be much of an impact, but the longer this goes, the longer oil prices are higher, certainly the larger the impact we may feel on the stock markets in general. And so something to keep a really close eye on. Make sure that we're defensive right now so that, you know, we're prepared in case things do continue to show volatility. But also, you know, depending on how this translates, making sure that, you know, there may be some opportunities to find buying opportunities in this volatility as well. And so that's a big consideration as we look towards the landscape a little further ahead. So hopefully that helps. Again, really wanted to highlight oil prices and how important that is to the economy and the stock market as a whole as we look ahead, and how this all translates to the challenges over in Iran with the Strait of Hormuz. So be sure to tune in next week. Again, we're going to cover consumer sentiment and retail sales. In the meantime, have a great upcoming weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday at 3.